Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Exactly a week to go for the US election. It's turning out to be one of the closest in a while, one of the most violent elections since in the last 50 years, with ballot boxes being set on fire. We look at what the latest polls say, also why Elon Musk is turning into such a big deal in this election. He's already pitching Trump's economic policy with a $2 trillion budget cut. That's what he's proposed. And will a comment about Puerto Rico cost the Trump campaign? We'll tell you about a new controversy that the Democrats hope to capitalize on. Meanwhile, Israel continues to fight the United Nations after declaring Secretary General Antonio Guterres persona non grata. Israel has banned aid agency UNRWA. India unveils an anti-drone gun called the Vajra Shot. We'll tell you why it's making waves. Why Brazil has refused to join China's Belt and Road project. Why Boeing's story is going from bad to worse with a $19 billion fire sale, how France is patching up with its former colony Morocco and why they fell out in the first place, why the Vatican has launched an anime mascot to woo the young, and this Dhanteras, we'll talk about how health is wealth. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Iran and Germany face off over the execution of a German-Iranian dissident by Tehran. Berlin summons the Iranian envoy to lodge a protest and recalls its ambassador in Tehran. An angry Iran hits back, says the dissident was a terrorist, asking Berlin to stop with the gaslighting. Indonesia and Russia will hold their first joint naval drills next week. Jakarta's Navy makes the announcement. Its newly inaugurated president is looking to boost ties with Moscow and has refused to take sides over the Ukraine war. Indonesia is Southeast Asia's biggest economy. Bangladesh signals the start of the election process, forming a search committee to establish the Election Commission. In August, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted. Since then, Mohammad Yunus has been leading the interim government. But will Hasina's Awami League be allowed to contest in this election? Bangladesh's Law Affairs advisor says the people will decide. Botswana heads to the polls tomorrow, where the voters will decide the makeup of parliament. The lawmakers will then elect their president. Botswana's governing party has been in power for almost 6 decades. The diamond-rich country is regarded as one of the most stable democracies in Africa. And controversy erupts over the Ballot d'Or award. Real Madrid boycotts the ceremony in Paris after their star player, Vinicius Jr., was snubbed. Instead, Spain's Rodri was given the top honor. For the first time in a decade, neither Lionel Messi nor Cristiano Ronaldo were nominated. We are a week away from Election Day in the United States. As they say, it's the home stretch, the last chance to make your case. Kamala Harris will be speaking in Washington and Donald Trump is heading to Pennsylvania. But today, the focus is not on the candidates, it is on the ballots. Ballot boxes are being set on fire in the United States. 3 incidents have been reported, 2 of them in Portland and 1 in Vancouver. Not the Canadian city, there's a Vancouver in Washington too. All these cases had the same modus operandi. Someone stuck incendiary devices to the ballot boxes. They began smoking and eventually caught fire. And damages? In Portland, not much. Only 3 ballots were lost, but in Vancouver, hundreds were destroyed. Take a look. Local police are on the case. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, has also joined in. So it's all hands on deck. But do they have any suspects? Well, officials have released pictures of a car. They say it's a Volvo sedan. Apparently, this car was used to drop off the device in Portland. If so, the culprit should be caught soon. The police also believe the cases are linked, meaning the same suspects could be behind all the attacks, the ones in Portland and Vancouver.
There was enough evidence collected at all three scenes that lead us to believe that all three incidents are connected, and we cannot get into more detail.
Some background now. Voting in the US does not start on November 5th. It ends on November 5th. Millions of Americans have already cast their vote. How? Using early voting methods. You can drop your ballot off in dedicated boxes. You can also mail them via postal services. And what's the advantage? You can avoid the queues on voting day. Nearly 240 million Americans are eligible to vote. Almost 43 million have voted early. Democrats hold a narrow edge in early voting, but Republicans are catching up, mostly thanks to Donald Trump. In the past, he had opposed early voting. He blamed it for his loss in 2020. But this time, Trump has made a U-turn. He has realized that a lot of voters prefer the comfort of voting early. So he's supporting it.
It's common sense. Everyone knows mail-in ballots are a disaster. It'll be fixed. It'll be rigged. People ought to get smart.
Early mail-in voting is underway now in Michigan, so if you want, go out and get that ballot, return it as soon as possible.
Which brings us back to the ballot boxes. You will find them across U.S. cities. Not just for the presidential race, but also for congressional races, basically seats in the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. Now, Portland and Washington are Democrat strongholds, but Vancouver is different. Their congressional race is a toss-up. Only 1% differentiated the winner and loser the last time, so naturally there is concern. What are officials doing to address this? First, they're increasing security at ballot boxes. Second, they're verifying the destroyed ballots. Those voters will get a chance to vote again. As for the suspects, it's hard to say. Last week, a similar incident was reported in Arizona. A post box with 20 ballots was set on fire. It wasn't a political act, though. It was simply vandalism. The man was homeless, so he wanted shelter in jail. I know, only in America. We have to see if these incidents are similar or whether there is some deeper conspiracy this time. But let's also look at the bigger picture. 1 week out, who's leading this race? Kamala Harris is polling at 48.1%. Donald Trump is at 46.6%. So Harris leads by 1.5 percentage points, which is within the margin of error. But that's not her biggest worry. After Biden dropped out, Harris enjoyed a surge of support. By August, she led Trump by 4 percentage points. That lead has now narrowed to 1.5%, so the trajectory will worry Harris. Plus, national numbers do not matter very often. You can get more votes, but you still can lose the election. Because the US has what they call an electoral college. Each state has a certain number of votes. If you win the state, you get all of their votes. In total, there are 538 electoral college votes. Whoever crosses the 270 mark wins the election. Now, most states are fixed in their loyalties, like California. It's always Democratic. Texas is always Republican. So the race really boils down to some swing states, 7 of them. They keep switching hands. Look at the numbers there in the swing states. Wisconsin is tied. In Nevada, Trump leads by 0.2%. In North Carolina, he leads by 1.3%. In Pennsylvania, he leads by 0.3%. In Michigan, Kamala Harris leads by 0.5%. In Georgia, Trump leads by 1.5%. And in Arizona, Trump again leads by 1.9%. This is the story from America's 7 swing states. What does it tell you? A, it's been a great comeback by Donald Trump. He was trailing in a lot of these states. But not only has he closed the gap, he is now leading narrowly. And B, it is still too close to call. Each of these states, each of these leads is within the margin of error. So the swing states are swinging hard. Trump is certainly carrying some momentum into the final stretch. Let's see how Kamala Harris responds.
democracy. I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
Take over, Elijah. Take over.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk is preparing for a Trump victory. He backs the Republican candidate, and now he's working on policy prescriptions for the next U.S. president in the hope and belief that it will be Donald Trump. Now, Musk, as you know, is a billionaire entrepreneur, the man who chases big ideas like electric cars and rockets. Well, he's got a new one now. Elon Musk wants to tackle America's debt problem. He says he has a plan. He can reduce America's expenses by $2 trillion. Listen to this.
You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Musk has called America's debt a time bomb, and he has a point. As of today, the U.S. owes over $35 trillion. It's unsustainable debt. According to Elon Musk, the U.S. pays $1 trillion as interest alone, $1 trillion every year as interest. That's more than America's defense budget, by the way. Musk says that taxpayer money is being wasted, and he can help reduce this wastage by as much as $2 trillion. Now, a quick reminder, Elon Musk is not on the ballot in this election. He's not on the ticket. He's not even contesting for a seat in the U.S. Congress. Yet, he's sounding more and more like a candidate in the election. He's been actively campaigning for Donald Trump, not just as a star campaigner, but also as a major donor. Musk has poured in millions into Trump's campaign, more than $100 million to be precise. He's been giving out million-dollar checks to voters. Trump has even promised him a role in his future administration.
And we're going to bring Elon in. Anybody can land a rocket the way he landed that sucker. Coming down, they said, oh, it's going to crash into the gantry. I said, oh. And then those engines kicked in and the fire and the flame starts pouring out of the left side and starts pushing it over. And it comes down and those big, beautiful arms hugged it like you hugged your child.
He's entertaining. Clearly, Trump is impressed by SpaceX and Elon Musk. Perhaps he's hoping that Musk can use some of that rocket science to make America's debt disappear. And Elon Musk seems eager to take on the challenge. Earlier, he proposed a government efficiency commission, a body to rein in government spending, a government efficiency commission. This is just a proposal. No such commission exists at the moment, but Musk is acting like he's already in charge of it. So what is his big plan? How will he contain America's debt? Well, that he's yet to share. The specifics are missing from his pitch, but he keeps talking about it at Trump's rallies and amplifying his claims on X, the social media platform that he acquired. In fact, his recent posts focus almost entirely on the election, with Republican content and conspiracy theories. X has become Elon Musk's mouthpiece since he acquired it, and he's using this platform to rally more support for Trump. Basically, Elon Musk is a booster for Trump. He's betting big on the former president. Beyond social media amplification and personal donations, Musk is also building grassroots support for Trump. He has created a fund called America PAC. PAC, P-A-C, it stands for Political Action Committee. These are commonly used to funnel money into election campaigns. Musk has gathered lawyers, PR professionals, and political pundits. His team is working closely with the Trump campaign. They're trying to mobilize voters by canvassing battleground states. The goal is to bring at least 800,000 Americans to vote for Trump. So Musk is going all out in backing Donald Trump. And this is not just about his political preferences. This is also a business decision. This election is an investment for him. He wants an ally in the White House, and Donald Trump fits the bill. Trump's policies align with Musk's priorities: fewer regulation, less government interference, and most importantly, tariffs on Chinese companies. Elon Musk finds the Democrats weak on this front. Throughout Biden's tenure, Musk had multiple spats with the president. In recent days, in fact, Biden and the Democrats have been slamming him. Biden called Elon Musk an illegal worker. And here's what he's talking about. There's a backstory here. Musk was born in South Africa. In the 1990s, he came to the US on a student visa, but he ended up dropping out of the course. Reports say he was working illegally in the United States. Later, he transitioned to a work visa and finally became a citizen of the US a decade later. Now, Musk has denied all these allegations. He says the Democrats are just getting desperate. And this battle is only going to heat up as we inch closer to the election. The Democrats may not like Elon Musk, but they cannot afford to ignore him. In an election as close as this one, he could prove to be the difference between victory and defeat. Have you heard of the October surprise? It's usually a major news event or revelation. It happens in the month of October, right before the election in November. And this event has the potential to shape the polls, to influence the voters. It has the potential. Now, October surprises are not new. They've been a US election staple for decades now. But this October did not throw up anything major. We had the usual headlines here and there. We had the standard acrimony and drama, but nothing to sway the public in a big way. That may have changed this Sunday. Donald Trump was holding a rally in Madison Square Garden. That's in the city of New York. He was joined by 30 guest speakers. One such speaker was Tony Hinchcliffe. He's a US comedian, and this is what he said.
Is absolutely wild times. It really, really is. And, you know, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Basically, he called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, and the people cheered. Now, a quick primer here. Puerto Rico is a Caribbean island located around 1,600 kilometers from the coast of Miami. For 400 years, it was under Spanish possession. But that changed in the late 1800s when the US acquired this island. It is still self-governed, but it's an unincorporated territory of America. Puerto Ricans are US citizens, a status they've enjoyed since 1917. They can travel freely between Puerto Rico and mainland America, the US mainland, which brings us back to the elections. Puerto Rico is not a US state. It does not have electoral college votes. Those who live on this island cannot vote in the election, but if they live in any of the other 50 states of America, they are eligible. They can vote in the US presidential election. And how many of them live on the US mainland? Around 5.8 million. That's about 2% of the US population. It's lower than most other minority groups, but it's the distribution that is critical. Many of these people live in crucial swing states, like Pennsylvania. It's a swing state. Whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the White House. Nearly 500,000 Puerto Ricans live there. And the garbage island comment has not gone down well with them.
It's a shame that man thinks about us. When he was there 15, 20 years ago, he had a golf court. He had hotels over there. He lost everything, and now he's, bashing us and talking bad about us. We're part of the United States. We are Americans.
I can tell that people are not talking a lot about politics on the streets, and but they're not very happy about Donald Trump. That's one thing I can say. The few things that I have heard, that's what has to do with most of the time, the discontent. And I guess, that tells us, in which way the elections may go.
They're quite angry about it. And isolating such a big voter base is never a good idea, especially a week ahead of the election. So the Trump campaign is in damage control mode. Trump is now saying he doesn't even know the comedian. He says someone put him on the stage, but he had no idea who the man was. Basically, Donald Trump is trying to distance himself from this controversy, but looks like his running mate did not get the memo.
Again, I haven't seen the joke. Maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke. But I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America. I'm so over it. Can we all just take a chill pill and take a joke from time to time? This is ridiculous.
J.D. Vance wants people to take a chill pill, but the Puerto Ricans do not seem so chill. And rallying them are the Democrats. Historically, Puerto Ricans have predominantly voted for the Democratic Party, but in the recent years, the voter base has been divided. Kamala Harris now wants to win that support back, and she's using this as an opportunity.
Donald Trump this is not new about him, by the way. What he did last night is not a discovery. It is just more of the same and maybe more vivid than usual. Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other. Fans the fuel of hate and division. And that's why people are exhausted with him.
Supporting her are popular Puerto Rican celebrities, the likes of Jennifer Lopez, Bad Bunny and Ricky Martin. They've all endorsed Kamala Harris. They've all rejected the garbage island comment. And this is very important. Puerto Ricans are a crucial demographic. They can decide who wins the swing states. Plus, they aren't the only ones who are upset. The Trump rally had racist jokes about a lot of communities, including the Latinos.
Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this.
The Hispanics make up for 19% of the U.S. population. It's a very big voter base. Traditionally, they supported Democrats, but over the years, some have been moving to the Republican Party. Such comments could reverse the trend. At least the Democrats hope they will. Their numbers aren't looking so great. The race is getting closer than they'd anticipated. Any mistake can tip the scales. Will it be this October surprise then? Guess we'll know in a few days. And do make sure that you tune into Firstpost for all the election updates. Vantage will be coming to you live from Washington, D.C. starting next week. We'll be tracking the race from ground zero, catch exclusive ground reports, in-depth analysis, and as always, an Indian perspective. Only on Vantage, live from the White House next Monday.
ושאלו אותנו, אם כך מצביעים בקריאה השלישית לאחר שהוסרו כל ההסתייגויות.
Now let's look at what's happening in West Asia. Israel has launched a new offensive, but not the usual kind. This time it is a legal assault, and the target is also a bit unusual. Israel has set its sights on the United Nations. One UN body in particular, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East, usually shortened to UNRWA.
שאלו אותנו, ודאי גם אתם שאלתם את עצמכם, אם כך מצביעים על החוק בכללותו, כל ההסתייגויות, 92 בעד, 10 נגד. אני קובע כי הצעת החוק התקבלה בקריאה השלישית ותיכנס לספר החוקים.
UNRWA is an organization that a terrorist organization has completely taken over it. This legislation is disconnecting the relationship between Israel and between this organization. They will not be able to facilitate their activities or their infrastructures or their headquarters in Israel.
Israel has banned the UNRWA. It is no longer allowed to operate in the country. Israel has also passed a second law. It bans Israeli officials from having any contact with UNRWA employees. Now, the second law will come into effect 3 months from now. So what does all of this actually mean? Well, for starters, it means that humanitarian assistance to Palestinians will get severely impacted. The UNRWA is a relief agency. It provides aid to Palestinian refugees. It operates in 5 areas: the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. These are the 5 places where the UNRWA works. Now let's zoom into Gaza and the West Bank. These 2 regions are known as the Palestinian territories. They're both under Israel's control. Israeli forces occupy the West Bank and they control all the entrances into Gaza. So effectively, Israel has crippled the UNRWA in both Israel and the Palestinian territories. About 2 million Gazans depend on this agency for aid. That's almost the entire population there. And their dependency has only increased since the war began last year, but now their primary source of food, medicine and shelter won't be able to function. This has alarmed even Israel's allies.
There is an important role that UNRWA plays that no one else on the ground can play right now. And if UNRWA goes away, you will see civilians, including children, including babies, not be able to get access to food and water and medicine that they need to live. And we find that, frankly, unacceptable.
The allegations against UNRWA's staff earlier this week were fully investigated and offer no jurisdiction for cutting off ties with UNRWA. This weekend, we therefore joined partners in expressing concerns at the Knesset's legislation and urged Israel to ensure UNRWA's life-saving work continues. We call on UNRWA to continue its path to reform, demonstrating its commitment to the principle of neutrality.
Britain's Foreign Secretary mentioned allegations against UNRWA staff. Israel has long alleged that these officials took part in the Hamas attack on October 7th last year. And that is their justification for banning the agency. Israel named 9 people who took part in the attack, and the UN agency fired them. Investigations are still on. Meanwhile, 2 Hamas commanders were also found to have been UNRWA members. The agency itself has confirmed this. Does that mean that Israel is right in banning it? Well, this United Nations agency employs around 30,000 people. About 13,000 of them, 13,000, are in Gaza. A dozen of them have been accused of having links with Hamas. Those numbers have not convinced even Israel's backers. Some Western countries did stop funding the UNRWA earlier this year, but most have resumed that funding. The US has not. But even Washington says that this agency is indispensable. Israel, though, is not convinced. It seems to have declared war on the United Nations and UN agencies. Earlier this month, Israel declared UN Chief Antonio Guterres persona non grata. He was barred from entering the country. Israel has been trying to crush the UNRWA for years, even before the war in Gaza began, and it has finally succeeded. You may remember back in 2018, Israel also formally left UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Israel accused this agency of having an anti-Israel bias because they call the Golan Heights occupied territory, which it is. It was Syrian territory taken by Israel in 1967, but Israel did not like UNESCO reminding the world about this. So they just left the organization along with the US. The US, by the way, joined UNESCO back in 2023, but Israel still has not. Now, this points to a pattern. Every time the UN calls out Israel, it responds by banning a UN agency or even the UN chief. Yet, Israel remains a part of the United Nations. And we know that the UN is far from perfect. We point this out ourselves quite often. It's an outdated body stuck in the post-World War II era, and it does not represent the world fairly. But if you're a member, you have to follow the rules. You can try and change the United Nations from within, but you can't just ignore rules that you do not like. You can't just ban agencies and secretary generals if you don't agree with them. Now let's talk about drones. They're revolutionizing modern-day warfare. They're changing the way wars are fought, which means we need technology to take them down. One such piece of equipment is an anti-drone gun. It disrupts the signal between the drone and the operator, making the weapon useless. The world does have such guns, but most of them are big and unwieldy. So India is offering an alternative. India has unveiled a new gun called the Vajra Shot. It weighs just about 3.5 kilograms. It has a bigger range than most anti-drone guns, and it's a made-in-India defense solution. More importantly, it's not our only one. India's defense exports have shot up to $2.6 billion this year. So who are the top buyers, and what does this trend mean for India? Our next report tells you.
This is the Vajra shot. It's a handheld anti-drone gun. It weighs just 3.5 kilograms, and it's also portable. It has a simple LED display with a battery that lasts for 9 hours. So, what does this gun do? Well, the Vajra shot can detect drone signals, and then it can jam them. That way, communication between the drone and its operators is disrupted. It has a range of around 4 kilometers, but what's even more crucial is that the gun can adapt its output frequency. That way, it can neutralize a wide range of drones. The gun was designed by the Chennai-based Big Bang Boom Solutions. It's been deployed for the Indian Army and Air Force. It's already received orders of up to $25 million. That's around 210 crore rupees. Now, this isn't the first such anti-drone gun. The United States has its Drone Defender and Raytheon's Coyote UAV. Russia has a similar handheld system, the Rex-1 system. But both of these systems are bulkier. They offer soldiers less flexibility in the battlefield, which makes the Vajra shot unique. And guns like the Vajra shot have become crucial, especially in modern-day warfare. Drones have changed the ways wars are being fought. We've seen that in Ukraine. Between 2018 and 2023, states using drones have risen from 16 to 40. That's a 150% increase. That means that there's a need for anti-drone systems like the Vajra shot. Plus, it's a made-in-India defense solution. In 2023, India crossed some milestones in defense production. It produced military equipment worth $15 billion. And it's not just the public sector, the private sector is playing a big role too. The Indian government has issued over 600 licenses to more than 350 companies. There are your big players like the Tata Group and the Bharat Forge, but there are also startups. 329 of them are engaged in defense production. Made-in-India defense items are also finding takers across the globe. India's defense exports currently stand at $2.6 billion. That's around 21,083 crore rupees. India is shipping weapons to around 100 countries. The top buyer is Armenia. Yerevan buys finished weapon systems like the Akash air defense missile systems and the Pinaka multi-launch rocket systems. The other two top buyers are the United States and France. Both countries import a lot of software, subsystems, and components. There's also interest for India's BrahMos missiles. New Delhi has already exported them to the Philippines. India is also in advanced discussions with Indonesia and Thailand for the same. Other ASEAN nations and Gulf countries are also interested. So there is demand for made-in-India weapons. Traditionally, India has always been a defense importer. New Delhi still remains the world's largest arms importer. It accounts for 9.8% of the total global arms imports. But investing in weapons like the Vajra shot shows that India is changing its defense strategy by becoming self-reliant and exporting to the world.
Xi Jinping's grand project is on life support. I'm talking about the BRI, or the Belt and Road Initiative. Another country has refused to sign up for it, and that too a fellow BRICS partner, Brazil. China tried hard to get President Lula da Silva on board. Last week, they hosted his advisors in Beijing. They tried to sell the grand BRI vision, but no luck. Brazil wants to keep its options open. It is okay with Chinese investments, but not binding agreements like the BRI. Listen to the President Lula's advisor.
The Chinese call it the Belt and Road, and they can give whatever names they want. But what matters is that there are projects that Brazil has defined as a priority, and that may or may not be accepted by Beijing.
It is a big setback for China because Brazil would have been a great addition. The biggest economy in South America, a country of more than 200 million people, a fellow BRICS member, and located right in the middle of America's backyard. China had everything mapped out. President Xi Jinping is traveling to Brazil next month. Chances are the BRI would have been a big headline. Xi's big success in Brazil, that's what they thought. But now he will return empty-handed. It's quite a U-turn for Lula too. Earlier this year, he was open to the idea of joining BRI. Chinese state media was thrilled about it. They wrote puff pieces about Lula's visionary policy. So what changed? Well, mainly two things. One, he was under pressure from the US. Last week, Joe Biden's trade representative visited Brazil. Her name is Catherine Tai. She cautioned Lula against joining BRI. She said Brazil should weigh the risks of such a decision. Of course, China was not happy about it. They called her remarks disrespectful. Nonetheless, they worked. Secondly, the BRI is not what it used to be. It started off with a bang in the last decade. More than $1 trillion invested, dozens of projects completed. It seemed like everyone wanted to sign up. But slowly, the true picture emerged. Most of the BRI deals were mired in secrecy. The projects turned into corruption scandals and the loans became a burden. When countries failed to repay, Beijing took its pound of flesh, like the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. So the initial excitement disappeared. And the numbers reflect that. 35% of the BRI projects ended in controversy, like corruption or labor violations. More than 200 projects led to unsustainable debt. Even China realizes this. Look at their lending to Africa. In 2022, China gave less than $2 billion to Africa, their lowest in 10 years. So clearly the BRI is not paying off. Plus, China's economy is struggling. To give loans abroad, you need a strong domestic base. China does not have that anymore. It is also no longer the fastest growing major economy. All of this would have influenced Lula's decision. A, he doesn't want to antagonize the US, and B, he doesn't see any major benefits from the BRI. In many ways, this vindicates India's position. New Delhi never joined the BRI. We've constantly questioned China's intentions, whether it's on saddling countries with debt or undermining their sovereignty or the feasibility of these projects. And looks like the world is catching up. Last year, Italy decided to leave the BRI. Italy was the only G7 member to join China's project, but they had nothing to show for it. I guess Brazil does not want to repeat that mistake. The question then is, where does that leave the Belt and Road? In a spot of bother. The project is not dead by any means. They still have hundreds of active investments and loans, but the momentum is gone. Brazil's entry could have rejuvenated the BRI, but their refusal will have the opposite effect. It will add to the gloom around it. And it's not like China can throw money at the problem because their economy cannot bankroll it anymore. Politically, it's also a setback to China's goals in Latin America. This region is seen as America's backyard. But China has been trying to make inroads here, and sometimes with success. China is the biggest trading partner for many South American nations like Brazil, Peru, and Chile. They've also invested heavily in the region. But Brazil's decision shows that there is a long way to go. The US writ may have weakened there, but it has not disappeared. Our next story is about Boeing, the embattled plane manufacturer. It has launched a fire sale of shares. Boeing plans to sell nearly $19 billion worth of stock. The company is running low on cash. Its credit rating may drop to junk status soon. Boeing desperately needs to raise money to avert this crisis, but the company's woes do not end with that. Boeing's factory workers remain on strike. The protest has entered its 7th week, and there is no resolution in sight. Our next report tells you more.
A faulty product, poor management, and repeated compromises on passenger safety. Boeing made all the mistakes a plane manufacturer shouldn't. 2 of its planes fell out of the sky. This year, a panel blew off one of its planes mid-air.
1, ignition.
Even America's space agency, NASA, faced issues with Boeing. Boeing's Starliner aircraft left 2 astronauts stranded in orbit. So, it was only a matter of time before these problems hit Boeing's bottom line. The company is bleeding cash. Credit ratings agencies may downgrade Boeing to junk status. So, Boeing is orchestrating a sale of its shares. The plan is to offer $19 billion worth of company stock to the public and raise money to boost the company coffers. Boeing is weighing other options too, like selling off the troubled Starlink program. Boeing's new CEO, Kelly Ortberg, has admitted that the company is at a crossroads and needs fundamental changes to survive. Ortberg has been CEO for barely 2 months, but he clearly walked into a storm. Some of Boeing's biggest customers are unhappy. The likes of American and Southwest Airlines, both carriers have sent the same message to Boeing: pull up your socks and start doing better. These airlines want Boeing to deliver new planes quickly. On that front as well, Boeing remains in a challenging position. The factories, which are supposed to produce the new planes, remain shut. For the past 7 weeks, workers have been on strike. They want their retirement benefits reinstated. Earlier, the workers used to get a guaranteed sum as pension. This month, Boeing offered to raise their pay by almost 40%, but it refused to restore pensions. The workers rejected the new employment contract.
You know, this wasn't enough for our members. There is a big gap that we couldn't reach, especially when it's been 16 years since we've had a chance to bargain every area of our contract. And trying to make all that up in one is very hard to do, but our members deserve more. They've spoken loudly, and we're going to go back to the table to try to achieve those things.
Negotiations have hit a deadlock. As long as the workers remain on strike, Boeing will continue losing money. In the last quarter alone, Boeing reported over $6 billion in losses. Its production lines are silent, no new planes are being built, and workers remain off the job. But Boeing's biggest challenge is the lack of trust from all sides. It must restore confidence among employees, customers, and stakeholders if it hopes to recover.
France and Morocco are making headlines. The two countries haven't been on the best of terms. Tensions have been running high for years, but France made a breakthrough this week. French President Emmanuel Macron is in Morocco for a 3-day visit. It seems that he has successfully repaired ties and signed deals worth over $10 billion to boot. This is definitely a success for Macron, which is rare these days, especially when it comes to Africa. So let's take a closer look at the situation and see what this means for both nations. We'll start with some background. Morocco is a country in Africa, in North Africa, on the Mediterranean coast, and France is, well, France. So, of course, the French colonized Morocco in the past. France made the kingdom a protectorate and ruled it between 1912 and 1956. Morocco gained independence in 1956, but of course France had a post-colonial hangover. It went fine for a few decades, but in 2021 ties hit a new low. That's when Paris tried to strong-arm Rabat. Rabat is the capital of Morocco. France wanted Morocco to start taking back illegal immigrants, so they drastically reduced the visas issued to Moroccan people. It was a pressure tactic. But Morocco wasn't having any of that. The kingdom suspended consular relations with France. That was strike one. Strike two came later that same year. In 2021, there was a flare-up in the Western Sahara conflict. The Western Sahara region is disputed territory. Morocco controls about 70% of the region. The remaining 30% is controlled by an indigenous armed group. It is called the Polisario Front. This group is backed by Algeria, another North African nation, and another former colony of France. So France was caught in the middle of a diplomatic tussle between Algeria and Morocco, two former colonies. And it chose to back Algeria at the time. That was strike two as far as Morocco was concerned. Strike three came in 2023. The European Union Parliament voted on a resolution targeting Morocco. They accused Rabat of intimidating and harassing journalists and activists. The day the EU Parliament voted on this resolution, Morocco terminated the duties of its ambassador to France. That was strike three. But ever since then, Macron has been trying to repair the relationship. In 2023 itself, he said that he was determined to move forward, and he made his big move earlier this year in the month of July when he changed his stance on the Western Sahara conflict. Macron decided to back Morocco instead of Algeria in this conflict. And this was his trump card. It set the stage for his current visit. Even today, Macron reiterated his support for Morocco.
I am thinking, of course, first and foremost, of the Western Sahara, on which I wished on behalf of France to clarify my vision when I spoke to His Majesty, King Mohammed VI, on July 30th last. And I reaffirm it here before you. For France, the present and future of this territory fall within the framework of Moroccan sovereignty.
The move has had its intended effect. Moroccan media is calling Macron's visit a warm reunion and a new honeymoon for the two countries. Those are the terms they used. Yesterday, Macron got the red carpet treatment when he arrived in Rabat. Morocco's King Mohammed IV greeted Macron in person at the airport, and then the two countries signed a host of lucrative deals, a total of 22 agreements worth about 10 billion euros, which is more than 10 billion US dollars. One of the deals that stands out is a railway agreement. Morocco will purchase 12 high-speed railway carriages from the French company Alstom. It has the option to buy 6 more in the future. France has also signed multiple renewable energy deals with Morocco, including one where Total Energies will produce green hydrogen in the country. These deals mark a major victory for Macron, especially in Africa. Over the years, France has been losing its influence on the continent. So this will be a welcome reset for Paris. But it's just the first step. France needs to do a lot more of it if it wants to rebuild its influence in Africa. Speaking of rebuilding influence, let's talk about the Catholic Church. Christianity is witnessing a decline in the West, and the Pope is worried. So he has embarked on a new spiritual journey, this time to curry favor with Gen Z, or those born between 1997 and 2012. After releasing a digital rosary and a Gen Z documentary, now the Vatican has launched an anime mascot, specially for the young. But will all of this work? Here is a report.
If you were to visit Rome right now, this is what you would see. Construction walls and scaffolding surrounding landmarks. Workers are racing to spruce up Rome, and mainly the Vatican, which is the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church and home to the Pope. This Christmas Eve, the Vatican is expecting hundreds of thousands of pilgrims for the Jubilee festival. This is a rare Catholic tradition. It's celebrated every 25 years. And amid the preparation, Luce has become the top priority. Wearing an outfit that represents the Vatican flag, with a bright yellow jacket, muddied boots and a rosary. This is the Vatican's official mascot for the Jubilee. Luce, which translates to light from Italian, has been designed by a Japanese-inspired lifestyle brand in Italy. It looks a lot like an anime character. And this is on purpose, because, believe it or not, the Vatican wants to curry favor with Gen Z, or those born between 1997 and 2012. According to the Vatican's chief organizer of the Jubilee, the doll is inspired by the Church's desire to live even within the pop culture so beloved by our youth. What a boomer way to put it. But we get the sentiment. For years, the Church has warned that Christianity is dying in the West. In Europe, mammoth Gothic cathedrals have empty pews. Shuttered church buildings are increasingly being converted into nightclubs and skate parks. Europe's Christian population is expected to drop by about 100 million people, falling from 553 million in 2010 to 454 million in 2050. And experts say that the American church is poised to follow. US church membership has fallen below 50%. About 64% Americans call themselves Christian today. It may sound like a lot, but 50 years ago, that number stood at 90%. It's expected that by 2070, Christians may no longer form the majority in the United States. But now, Christianity wants to re-establish its dominance. And how else but by bringing young people into the fold? An important part of this is what's being called the yassification of Pope, ever since the Pope's AI-generated street-style images went viral. But beyond that, 87-year-old Pope Francis has become trendy with the youth. The Pope has repeatedly said he wants to hear the doubts and criticisms of young people. Last year, he made a Disney documentary about it, where he talked to Gen Z about the Church's stance on queer issues, abortion, clergy abuse and feminism. In the past year, the Pope has also approved blessings for same-sex couples. He's called for greater roles for women in the church, been outspoken on climate change and artificial intelligence. Plus, he has launched an e-rosary for Gen Z, which is an app-driven digital rosary. Now, critical issues aside, apps are like candy for Gen Z and the Pope knows it. But will these steps attract the young? So far, Gen Z has remained on the fence. While the Pope may sometimes strike the right chord, Gen Z thinks it's sus. So there's still a long way to go. Amid greater calls for gender equality in the church, inclusion of LGBTQ people, and a cascade of sex abuse scandals, the Vatican needs much more than an anime mascot cheering it on to win over Gen Z.
Now let's turn our attention to India, where homes are being decorated with lights and rangolis as millions celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights. This is a 5-day festival and it has begun today with Dhanteras. Dhan means wealth. Dhanteras is a festival of prosperity and abundance, so it is considered auspicious for making purchases. If you're in India, you will find shops jammed with people who are buying gold, silver and other valuables. And while this is common practice, there is more to Dhanteras than just the pursuit of material wealth. You see, Dhanteras coincides with Dhanvantari Jayanti. According to Hindu mythology, Dhanvantari is the god of medicine, the god associated with Ayurveda. He represents healing and well-being. And today, on the occasion of Dhanvantari Jayanti, health is also celebrated as a form of true wealth. On this occasion, Prime Minister Modi extended his greetings, saying that a nation's progress accelerates when its citizens are healthier. And this is true, not just for India, but for any country. We already know that when a nation's economy improves, the health of its citizens improve. But it may be less obvious that the opposite is also true. And the logic is quite simple here. The healthier the citizens, the more effective the workforce. So healthy people create economic health. By how much? As much as 50%. The health of people affects a country's economic growth by 50%. This is according to the World Bank. So without health, there is literally no wealth, and not just on a global or national level, but also on a personal level. As time goes by, as people mature, they experience more life, at least in the philosophical sense, and their values evolve. The meaning we attach to wealth also changes with time. Research proves that as people grow in experience, the true meaning of wealth changes for them. They start associating true wealth with things that bring happiness. And what is true wealth then? Again, when researchers ask this, they're not really talking about money. This question is more about what truly gives you happiness. And the answer could be money. After all, money increases life satisfaction. But money is just a means to an end, a fulfilling life, which is manifested in many ways, like spending time in nature. For many, that is true wealth. Or having a strong community, asking for help and helping others, that is wealth. Prioritizing our relationships, eating well, taking care of our bodies, that is true wealth. These are unrelated things that bring us fulfillment in life. But do you know what unites them? Unsurprisingly, all of them improve our health. Be it taking walks in nature or helping others or having strong relationships, all of these are crucial for good health, which explains why being healthy gives people more happiness than doubling their salary, for instance. And while this is logical, with enough data to prove it, many of us do not do the obvious things that can make us healthy. Sometimes a shock to our system helps us notice all of this. For instance, after the pandemic, 66% of the world population is paying more attention to their health. 40% people are apparently managing their well-being better by saving money for a rainy day, eating well, and exercising regularly. But we don't need a crisis to prioritize our health. So this week, amid the festivities, let's recommit to healthy habits and make choices, financial and otherwise, life choices that help rather than hurt us. After all, care is investment. Without investment, there is no health, and without health, there is no wealth. So we are days away from the US election. I'm sure Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are nervous, but I'll tell you who's not. Joe Biden. You may remember Biden from 6 months ago. The Biden who was stumbling around, falling on stage, barely able to deliver a coherent sentence. But that was before his own party toppled him. Talk about a role reversal. We have heard of the US president toppling foreign governments. But this time, the US president himself was the victim of a coup. And guess what? It has worked wonders for Biden. Suddenly, he's jogging in front of the White House, speaking full sentences and making jokes about himself. Forget those de-aging tech bro billionaires. Someone should find out Biden's recent routine. Take a look at this.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin. I'm heading to do something that should have been done a long time ago. There you go. Jessica, if I'm really good, maybe you can get me a job in this.
Do you want to reconsider dropping out of the race?
I'm back in.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. US President Joe Biden celebrates Diwali in the White House, with astronaut Sunita Williams sending a special message from space. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez marks Diwali in Mumbai by lighting some firecrackers, and thousands pack London's Trafalgar Square to celebrate the Festival of Lights. Finally, we're also taking you back in history. On this day in 1929, Black Tuesday hit the Wall Street. 16 million shares were sold on the stock market in a single day. $14 billion were wiped out, impacting thousands of investors. This stock market crash triggered the Great Depression. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
This year, I have the unique opportunity to celebrate Diwali from 260 miles above the Earth on the ISS. On this day, I specifically think about my father, who immigrated to the U.S. from India. He kept and shared his cultural roots by teaching us about Diwali and other Indian festivals. Diwali is a time of joy as goodness in the world prevails.
Bye.